brother. How you doing, man?
Good, good. It's been a busy last little while for us. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of visiting places. Going to go see Natural Earth. We get stuff coming up. Your basement, right? The studio, I should say, right? Like that was a fun undertaking. It was a
Man,
good morning drive for me.
yeah, good inhale of fiberglass for you as well. How's your lungs?
Yeah,
Lungs are good?
yeah. Me and your father-in-law. It was great. We got it done though. Those are those like extra. Well, you were gone. Somebody had to do the tough jobs.
That's right. My father-in-law's like, how does it work that we have to do the hardest work while he's gone? He
Right.
leaves during the hardest. I was like, I didn't plan this. I swear, guys.
Demolition's done, and you're like, well, I gotta go see a doc about something. I'll be right back.
I'll see you guys. And then you guys are almost done by the time I got back. It was great.
Cool figure.
What are you smoking on today, man?
Right now today, this is blueberry lemonade from Western Cannabis. It is quite delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a hybrid is everything else these days, but definitely more on the upside. But it's got a really nice kick to it. Very frosty. I got some sample stuff, and it's quite good. I think it's lying just over 30 on the packaging. 3.5% terps.
Ooh, 3.5.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
pretty good.
I'm almost done the eighth because I got like a few different things from their line to check out, and this is the one that's gone first.
That's
It's
sweet,
also
man.
really good in a concentrate. Really good.
Oh, yeah. Well, at 3.5 terps, no kidding. No kidding.
Yeah.
It's good in the concentrate. I'd like to get that in like a live resin or a live rosin. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I've got it in. It's
Oh, yeah?
good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Really, really, really good. Yeah, it's got some bite to it. I mean, and that's the thing we've been talking about a little bit lately too. Is just the variance. There's so much cannabis in the market right now, like an incredible amount. But there's also like a really big variety in the type that there is. There used to be just a lot of garbage. And now it's gotten to a place where like we almost have too much good stuff because I think it's becoming harder and harder for growers to differentiate themselves. I can remember, as we were talking earlier with Natural Earth when we get to go see them, like here in the Manitoba market, it was like them and them at the beginning or earlier on. Anyways, within the first few years of legalization, where like once they got their license and they were selling under their brand, because they were doing white label, they did ghost drops for the longest time. We're working with them, and that was a huge thing. So they're just putting out incredible stuff for the longest time. But it was like that was it. And then at least in this province, more growers started giving. You get guys like Sweetgrass coming in, people that do things, good buds that higher quality. Good buds being sun grown, and Sweetgrass is another living soil legacy grower that was huge. They're even building a new grow right now. Like, so the example of some of the people doing better than what the big guys have been able to do. But it's just the influx of that, and now you're getting a lot of these other companies either have access to buying it, or they've got they're really upping their game because otherwise they're basically being used as input for concentrate or something because nobody wants to buy the flower. The quality for dollar has gone down to such a degree. You're picking up 5 grams for like $25 or something of 27% flower, and it's not dust or anything, right? It's like, that's really hard to argue. Do you want to pay for the good stuff? Do you want to pay for single strain so you're buying the same thing all the time, that kind of stuff? Then you've got to go the other direction. But that still allows you to have some, like, it's not like you're buying the ditch stuff, right? Like, even on those low price points, there's no reason to have to buy it. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just that, like, you just don't have to. You can still get it for the same dollar and not have to smoke the bad stuff.
No. You're absolutely right. And like, for some reason too, though, like, well, you're seeing a mass. There's a mad saturation of product right now in our country, and I don't think we're the only country. I think it's happening everywhere. But
Well, everybody thought they were gonna rule the world with it. Everybody started to grow, and now it's like, this is too much. What do we do with it all? Yeah.
Prices
Yeah.
aren't going down too much either, though. It sure
No,
doesn't
not
seem like it.
yeah.
Doesn't seem
I
like
mean,
it.
it went. I think there's been a pretty decent sized price drop, but the thing is that I think now that it's gotten to this point, we've really taken the growers under the current structure, tax models, all that stuff, to their basement. This is as far down as most of those guys can go and still be commercially viable. As you know, even guys that were sitting in that mid price point where you're like, oh, that's a good price for a pack of solid joints, or something like a Tantalus, is that's a little bit more of a recent thing up here, right? Like losing them, that wasn't the crazy high price stuff either, and it still wasn't. There were still issues that are created by the structure around it that prevent, that from getting to exist. They were that great middle ground of price and quality. But that's what makes the value of these like real craft places that are putting out this incredible stuff. Having them stick around is just too important to make sure that we don't get all the same stuff.
That's right. This is right now in 2023, this is the proliferation of craft cannabis, because it is like we're starting to see the downfall of the companies that thought big money could grow good herb, and that's not the case, although you have great investments or great investors and a whole bunch of square footage and so on and so forth, that doesn't grow great weed. You need
Right.
passion, you need understanding of the plant, you need a good environment, you need good conditions, and so on and so forth, good food, good soil, so on and so forth, and these are all things that had to be figured out the hard way by a lot of these companies. And yet, excuse me, you've got these craft places that are like, well, I'm just going to grow the product that I know how to grow, and we're going to see how it competes. And that kind of like, what, in your opinion, makes good weed? Like, what is it that makes, like, what are you looking for?
I have a specific benchmark outside of pure plant characteristics. Whether, because for me, the visuals, I have to have, if I'm spending the top dollar, there better be like one bud and a little bit because I need the primo stuff or whatever. I'm going to grind it up. I really don't give a shit. It's fun to look at. That's past it. But like, I smoke too much to really have to care. So that part's out of it. It's when me and my wife share a joint, how high am I? That's my benchmark, because especially as I've gotten into this and the amount of testing joints we've smoked, how there's a lot of times that you sit there and smoke it and then we're talking and then it's immediately reaching for another one, or we grab the bong or whatever, right? And whether it's out of her mouth or out of mine, we're going like, well, that was kind of whatever. What do you want to smoke something else? What do you want to do? What do you want to do now? And so it's just weird when, not that it's weird, but it's so obvious and such a different visceral experience when we get to do that. And then I get to go, I am stonked out of my tree right now. And to have that in these similar quantities of sharing like a 0.5 gram joint with somebody, for me to be able to have that different kick, I'm still going to smoke after anyways. Like, I mean, that wasn't going to not happen. It's just whether or not that entourage effect of everything that's going on with that experience is that kind of benchmark of where I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, the inhale's good. It feels like there was a good cure, and it smokes really well. Just being smooth. Some stuff like that can be definitely indicative of the cultivar, so that I try not to put too much weight on that. But it's part of the experience, how nice of a pull I can take with it, and then just that, where the effect side of things. I mean, show me the money. What are you doing to give me that? There's a lot of those. If I'm looking for something in particular, forget a specific effect, that's one thing, but it's just like, are you giving me the production value where it's just take my money? let's do that again. I think it's more along the lines of like where I generally aim.
That's fair. That's fair. And I generally agree with most of that because, I when I listen to my business partner, Rob, when he talks, he's very particular in the taste. It has to taste great. And it has to be that funky, fuely, kind of nasty. Doesn't do the fruity, doesn't like the sweet.
But I
And
think that's also bringing in too much of your own opinion into it. Like
right, right. And I would
that's
say,
like, right?
what do you think makes good bud? So, and that
But
would be
that's the
preference,
grow.
right?
That's you guys and your grower guy.
That,
You
yes,
grower
yeah, yeah, yeah.
guys. Yeah.
Naturally, yeah. I was gonna say, for me, I totally agree with you, man. I'm not looking for something that tastes pretty or smells like. Don't get me wrong, that's the icing on the cake. But I'm
Mhm.
looking for a kick in the face. I want something
Right.
that's gonna make me start drooling. Consider my life options. This is really the stuff that I'm looking for. Um,
Getting a brow sweat on. You're just like,
yeah,
oh my god.
yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
thing in
Yeah.
the morning.
Right.
So it's like that, and if it's gonna be sweet, sure. If it's gonna be gassy, bring it on. If it really doesn't matter, just give me what I
Right.
need. All right.
Again,
Um,
pasties, that's what water's for. It's not that, like, those things aren't the end of the world where I'm like, no, that stuff gives me the pasties all the time. And I can't. I'm like, yeah, but it kicks my teeth in. So who cares?
that's it.
I can be a little perched for a few minutes. It's not
Yeah,
the end of the
yeah.
world.
No, don't
I don't
mind
have
at
to
all.
solve that.
I
No.
have preferences in taste. Like I generally
Oh,
don't
yeah.
like that orange citrusy taste. It's
Mhm.
got a bit of a spice to me that I'm just like gets annoying after a while. It's like sleeping in your own bed and you just got gas after a hot chili. It's like it just gets nauseating after a while.
Right.
At first it's impressive, but then it's just like, But anyways,
Yeah.
it's like, but
Anything over flavored, I
can
think
can be
that's
yeah
what you're
can really can really turn you off. When it but generally speaking, I want something that's going to grow great. I'm not typically purchasing herb from anywhere. Um,
right.
and so I want something that's going to grow great. I want something that's going to be relatively problem free. I don't want it flowering forever. That's another thing. I don't want a 14-week flower like maybe an amnesia haze or a Maui Wowie. These are things it's a big no for
Right.
me because this is a flower that just doesn't fit my schedule. I want something that's not prone to disease. I want something that's going to be, really easy to grow. But I also want that potency. I want those rosinous buds. I want, I want that production of trichomes, those cannabinoids, So I'm very picky, but it comes most of the time before I smoke it, and so that way by the time I
Right.
get to smoking it, it's like, you know what? I know it's gonna be good. I don't care what it tastes like. Just get me to the finish line. I got a job to do and I
And,
need to do it now.
and I think that that's also uh, a way that you get to just like you said, you've put in the work. You've made the decisions ahead of time at the supply line, right? You cut them off at the pass, make the decisions to fit the requirements. And the fun part about those requirements is it also comes with the positive of like, it's just going to be good weed because you've made the genetic decisions to start the foundation good, and then the rest of it from there, it's all gravy. It's, you don't, like you said, you know it's going to be good weed. It's, all of these things are going to be in place because of the decisions you made earlier. So it's a lot harder to be particular, right? It's just like vehicles or something. Everybody's car does the same thing. Sports cars get you there faster. Luxury vehicles make your butt more comfortable on the journey. All those things. It's doing the same thing, but finding different ways that fit your lifestyle, that time of day, whatever it is to fit you. And that's what's also one of the greatest things about this plant. It's like you can play that game all day. All day you have options. So it just, why not use them? Why not utilize it a little bit more? Being stuck inside of things, I think, is one of the craziest things. I always find it odd, the customers that come in, and it's the same thing every time. And even if they're buying a discount brand that has rotating strains in and out of it, depending on what they get a hold of for that to get it at that price point, like it's still the sativa bag or the indica bag that they always buy, and I'm like, that's insane. It's just there. There's a lot of different experience in getting high off of cannabis. It is not a singular thing, and that's like most drugs outside of like, I mean, alcohol's still that way too, right? I mean, whiskey drunk's a little bit different than beer drunk, and
Yep.
vodka
People are
and
very
all that stuff, right?
particular. Very particular.
Yeah.
They want it.
They have a wine drunk's really rough on them versus them drinking something else, whatever it is. Right?
Sure.
So
Yep.
like,
Yep. And some people can just
that's
drink
true.
whiskey like all day, and then the moment they have like a beer, they're drunk. Done. So
Right.
it's like their
Right.
preference and what your
How
body
their
can
body
take.
reacts.
Yeah. 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 See,
Yeah.
like for me, when I have different standards, 100%, because it's like when I grow my own, that trim job, for example, that's one of the first things that gets compromised when you're growing your own, and the sex appeal of that bud. My trim job has gone from, when you first start harvesting, your excitement for harvest is at like a 12 out of 10. And that lasts until about your fourth, fifth, or sixth harvest, and then it's just becomes a burden after that point.
How do you automate this process?
That you can, and you
Yeah.
can. I've done really well at automating the process. Um,
Yeah.
the thing is that it, if I'm going to be growing myself, I have an expectation that's really high, but also at the same time I understand where it can be compromised. So the trim job is one of those, and I have a high expectation for my buds. However, it's more so that if I'm going to be purchasing this bud, it needs to be perfectly moist, it needs to be perfectly trimmed. It needs to be perfectly, it really needs to be a perfect product. It's like there shouldn't be variance in it. Imagine if you went to, the liquor store, or even better yet, look at tobacco, for example. And let's say you smoked a Marlboro, and then, you go to the gas station, and they're like, well, we've got some Marlboros here, but they're going to vary in taste. They're going to vary in how much nicotine hits you. It's going to vary in terms of the effect and the feeling. One of those cigarettes might just knock you out. The other one, you might not feel anything at all. That there would be no
Look out
industry.
for sticks.
It just wouldn't have, you couldn't have it.
No.
It's like going to the gas station, and they're saying, well, you made this analogy once. It's like you go to the gas station, and then they tell you, you're gonna get about 1.5 liters. It's like, no. I want a gallon, not about 1 liter. It's like I need a gallon on the $4 or whatever. And they're like, well, you'll get about a gallon. No. And
That
it's like,
shows the infancy of this industry, though. I mean, as we're seeing things, Health Canada talking about dealing with the testing and situation, right? Like it's not like we're the only ones talking about it. Like they
it's a
know
gong
this
show.
is a problem. It's a gong show. The fact that standardized testing to a more stringent degree was not established off the hop is insane, right? Like the amount of things where they were pitchforks and torches going save the children and what have you, but yet they didn't take time. In my city where my business is, like, we don't have bylaws preventing how close they are to each other. We don't have bylaws for how close we are to schools or any of that fun stuff. None of it exists. So you can own a beer vendor and put the weed store right next door, and then they talk about social responsibility and all these other things, right? Like that's the unfortunate part where you go, it's crazy the things you guys were worried about off the hop, that we have to repeal these decisions and implement new things. It's not even that it was like they just didn't think about it and now it's about finding a way to solve that problem. It's like, no, we actually have to put the effort through to remove the bullshit and then have to push it through on the other side. And that's my experience of just the product itself, not even with operating within it, as we talked about how much growers have to deal with with all the stuff. I mean, there's a lot where the micro guys have a big advantage just because of how they get to operate things. On top of it, it's just the small business advantage. New stuff comes out. Sweetgrass just dropped pre-rolls in the province where they haven't had pre-rolls before, and I think it was like BC was the first, and then now us. So, but I knew they were coming, went like that. I ordered them, So we'll have those soon, and I'm really excited
Good.
for that. But that's not a decision the big guys get to make all the time. And it's the same thing with growing, right? They have to go through their purchasers and their buying cycles, all that fun stuff. So if you don't have some control there, how do you adapt to the market quickly? And you can't. And these little guys can. They can make decisions like, hey, sitting on the same strain all the time is dwindling our market share. We have to find new things that are giving us what we want, right? And like, or what the consumer is looking for, and finding some new things. So
you got to keep it fresh. You got to keep it new. You know, back in the day, you know, when your buddy would hit you up and be like, "Yo, man, I got some good," you know, and next week you'd be like, "Bro, I got something different," you know, or it's like nothing was worse than hearing, "I got the same shit from last time."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it doesn't matter how good it is. It really. I think it was you and me talking about this yesterday. It was the retail experience is a lot about having a guy, because and I mean, the new customers don't know that, and so it's a little bit different for them. But that's one of the great things about this, about anything that, like, that's not that this is a hobby, but anything that an industry that anybody has passion about, where there's passion sectors. It could be board games. Like there's this Amuse and Games place in Winnipeg, and it started as a small place. Now they got this like big, beautiful location. You can go in there in the night and they have like, 50, 60 people in there all playing all different sorts of games all over the place and everything. It's crazy to see that, and you go off of board games and magic cards and whatever, right? And you would never think about it as an individual thing because you have one nerd friend that plays them or something, right? Like it's the fact that, as we play Catan every time we see each other, it's just the fact that like it allows for like a business to grow. It allows for opportunities where it's like these more secular individual things get to have some limelight.
If you're passionate about something and you stay fresh, innovative, provide a service, something that it can be consumed by the people, it's gonna work. You would think naturally. And whether it's Good Herb or whether it's a board game place, it's like people are looking for these things, and give them somewhere to go, and they're going to come, they're gonna go. And if you treat them like they might come back, they might. And so
the same forward, right? Like you don't want to lead. You go to a concert and they don't lead with their worst song. You lead with a hit, and then you trinkle one of the new songs that's your passion from the new album 3-4 songs in, and then you go right back to Living on a Prayer, or whatever. Like it's just it doesn't.
Or you introduce a new band. A new band comes out. Yeah. They open up for you or something. There's always new. Something fresh, something clean. And anywhere that like I don't necessarily disagree with if you can provide a good product. If there's companies out there that actually do run off one cultivar, props to them. Maybe they're trying to figure it out.
But I think that can exist. It's just that you like. You have to, if you do that, you have to be really good. It's just like a sports thing. If you're a specialist in something and if you're an offensive defenseman, that positive has to like wash out where you lack, right? If you want to be Erik Karlsson, if you want to be Morgan Riley, and you're not a classic stay-at-home defenseman, but it's because you put numbers up. So it's what makes it so that you can go, it's their fault on that play because they didn't get back in something. But it's because the other times they're helping to produce offense. So you don't care as much. And that's the thing with this is I think it's a very similar situation. As long as the growers that do these things exceptionally well, then the market is rotating within them anyways. They're part of that rotation, right? It's just kind of like there's this fear of activity and bullshit of where conversations and friend groups and what's popular in shops and all that stuff, the little zeitgeist of your local market. And then it's just about being part of it. And if you do something really, really well, then I think you get to hang out there, because then you like we're saying, we're not smoke you all the time, but I'm coming back. Right, I'm always coming back. I'm always going like, oh, one of those. Yeah, you know what? It's been a couple weeks. It's been a few days, and you're always coming back because you know it's great. But it's just the fact of whether or not, as an individual, I can survive off of that. That's one different. But having that where it's always within reach. You can always get a hold of it, and that's what's kind of nice about having those guys, because they do these things really, really well. And that's a lot of these smaller craft growers, right?
Yeah, we heard about it when we were visiting on
Natural.
Natural Earth. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That was, listening to Brett,
Dana.
Dana.
Yeah.
The passion, man, the passion was incredible, and the way he knew the plant and the way he spoke to it, and even while he was trying to teach us, or not, teach us or have a conversation with us, he was still tending to his plants. He was still,
Right, still like picking.
taking something here, taking something there, dusting this off, giving it a little this, a little that. That's someone who's passionate about their plants. This is someone who wants to see the best plants succeed. And I think, as much as you can always provide the best soil and the best lighting and nutrients, if you're not tending to it, if you don't have someone who knows what they're doing and is passionate about it, it's gonna lack, and it's gonna lack. And I think that's where a lot of these big companies are missing. And not to mention, it's like, I don't know how many hands are in the process when it comes to getting this bud to the shelf. There should be minimal, right? And I don't know if there is. I feel like it's got to go from a facility to a facility to a facility to a dispensary. And in a lot of these craft
Sometimes
cases,
that's very true.
in a lot of these craft cases, they can't afford that many steps. You know what I mean? So a lot of the cases, it's going from the grow to another room within the same facility to be packaged in that same facility to be shipped from that same facility. You know what I mean?
Well,
so
as being that we visited, we got to see, right? Dana's grow. Dana doesn't do business stuff. He grows really good weed. That's his job. He comes in there and handles those plants. And then you've got, we were watching the pre-rolls being done as we were there and packaged and stuff, with one guy just sitting there in the room,
rolling them up
it by hand, all that fun stuff. So it's you can't replace that. It's impossible.
That's the difference between a garden at like a vegetable. Everyone always says that fresh fruit from the garden tastes the best. That there's a reason for that. That's because you are literally taking it from the source where it gained all of its life. There's a reason, maybe you wash it first, but it's like, there's a reason it tastes so good. It's fresh. It's coming from the vine. It's coming from the plant, and then you get something from the supermarket, and although it might look like it's lush and colorful and full of terpenes, that those exist in vegetables. It's like you bite into it and there's nothing. It's flat. There's nothing there. And that to me is because it did not come fresh from the garden. It's been through way too many hands, way too many processes.
Or even the sake of or tending a grow box, like a grow unit or something, right? Where you're going to there, checking on numbers, and then going, okay, well, this is good. Did you even look at the plants? All those pieces. There's a difference from maintaining something to get it. You can execute things so many different ways, and it just, that doesn't come with any of the positives that we see. I'm so excited for you and Dana to get a chance to like really get to talk about growing. I think just on both sides, it's going to be interesting to see how, when you've got the passion, but your direction in which you execute are very different. Yours taking care of yourself, and it's not that he doesn't do that, but then there's, when we did the visit, a lot of this stuff was, there are things he likes and things he maybe wants to grow, but is it commercially viable for him? Does it work well within the system that he works in, which is those living soil? And some things just don't work for him in that would allow them to produce a crop that keeps the lights on, right? So like, there's those pieces of like, he still has all that passion and everything, but then he still has to make decisions to like feed that as well. And I think it's just going to be interesting to let you guys go a little bit, and then I can play moderator.
Yeah. Well, totally. Like, he has, I'm not going to out his age. He told us, but he has a lot more experience under his belt than I do, and mainly just because he's been growing for a lot longer than me. Um, but there are a few things where maybe as old school slash new school, there's some variances. There are some differences, and
There's going to
and
be some
and
back and forth there, and it'll be
oh,
really
it's gonna be
neat to see
great
that.
conversation, man, because
Yeah.
it's like first of all, there is not just one way to grow this plant. And these
Right.
guys will tell you because they're doing it in one way that's not even being done at a commercial level in our country at all. They're one of
Yeah.
the only ones, if I'm not mistaken, if not the only one. So it's like, they're gonna see that there are a multiple or sorry, there is just a multiple ways, or there are multiple ways to grow this plant. So you can't really say either one way is better than the other, because people have been doing it and are doing it well, and there's different traits. They mentioned that they're getting terpenes or cannabinoids in their product that are not prevalent in other products, or within these strains or these cultivars at all. So their style of grow is actually having an impact on the flower itself. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah. What a fascinating thing. And there's Adam for like shoving that down our throats constantly when we were talking with them. But it's like that right there. When you're looking for at the top of this, talking about the fact that it's really hard to differentiate yourself because the level has been brought up. It's what happens when you move from the minors to the big leagues, right? All of a sudden, everybody's really good, right? It's so what happens when you're no longer special? When you are no longer the kid at the games that's slugging it at every at bat and making everybody else look like they are the 13-year-old boys that they are, and it's stuff like the ability to be able to have that story about the fact that their process is so hands-on and so different that they can, not the grower, but it feels like you're manipulating the plant on the fly, right? Like you're able to, through the process, change how this thing grows, manipulate it to such a degree and give it an effect that makes it even that much better than it might have been already. And if it wasn't for that, the way you do it, like I can't make it do that. You can give me those exact clones. Dana can be like, here's one for you, here's one for me, right out of the thing. And I know what mine's going to look like, and it's nothing like what he's doing. And like, that's how that doesn't get taken into account. The artistry is crazy.
It's
crazy.
like, as a grower to a grower, it does get taken into account. It does.
Right,
these are very important things, because the work
by consumer level ideas, but
right, they miss it. It gets lost. And this is actually
education. It's just not.
I'll
there.
circle
They
back
just don't
on this.
understand.
I'll circle back on this because there is a big difference between the two cultures too when it comes to from the cannabis scene that I get in America versus here. There's a lot of respect from the consumer towards the grower, and maybe it's just an isolated kind of thing that I get when I'm down there, but we are often the only growers that are in the conversation at all. And the amount of like, wow, thank you for bringing us this great flower that we all get to toke and enjoy and consume and socialize with. And it was like, wow, yeah, you're welcome. But it's like, to circle back there, it's like there's a reason that their product will stand out, because you can't do that amount of work without putting in the time, effort, and energy, because that is not the easiest way to grow product. It is not. The easiest way is to hook up a whole bunch of tubes with a whole bunch of hydroponics with pumps and tubes and water and roots, and that's the easiest, most effective way, because you don't have to do anything. Control. It automatically waters all itself. It's all done. It's all automatically controlled. Yeah. Whereas like if the way that they're doing it at Natural Earth, he has to hand water all 1,800 of those plants. Now, maybe call them crazy or call them passionate. It can be a fine line, actually. But
it's a proof in the pudding situation. Anyway.
The proof is in the pudding. I smoked it and I enjoyed it and I loved it and I would do it again. So it's like,
yeah.
And I'll stand by that.
You have to twist my arm.
Right. I'll stand by that.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the fact that I saw the process. That just was the finishing touch where it was like, okay, now it is a product. It stands behind the way it tastes and it smokes. It wasn't just
Right.
artificially thrown in my face. It wasn't irradiated, remediated.
Yeah. Non-irradiated.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't have to come into contact with any kind of radiation to get before it came to my plate, which to me is
To make sure
massive.
it passes, right? Like which is the thing. That's the point of it. That's why most companies do it, is so that it hits the standards.
That's right. That's right.
That
Which
Health
is
Canada set, right?
absolutely ridiculous. I'm 100% against irradiated weed, and especially as a home
Just
grower.
means steps weren't taken.
Well, you're losing stuff too, right? You're
It's hard to do at that mass scale as well. Like, I mean, I do get that, but
I disagree. I think this is why weed costs so much, is because you've got massive companies trying to do things at mass and cutting
Right.
corners. And in order for them to cut those corners, they have to pay more prices. And that irradiated is one of those cutting of the corners, because just if you should be able to put the right defenses in place before the product gets, or before you're flowering and before you have to harvest, so you don't need to ensure, or you don't need to get rid of bacteria, bugs, disease. You can do that all naturally, and I think you could do it at mass with more people. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking about with what you're talking about with the U.S. market and everything, right? And then we've had a lot of conversations around branding, and like right here, if you're not familiar with cannabis packaging in Canada, the label is basically 95% warnings and product information, like even the amount of space that the THC and CBD contents breakdown, the milligram per gram breakdowns is quite a bit of the label. And then you have a little corner space that you can put your logo. That's it. That's basically it. You have some control of color, but they don't like you operating within, like, you can't have pastels and stuff for the most part. Packaging itself is one of the only ways that a lot of guys have been able to get different coloring. Like there's some exceptions, but it's like, it at least has to be like, if you're going to have a mint green label, the bottle's also mint green or something, so that it's not totally out there. Not a lot of room for individualization and showing something through packaging here, right? There's a lot of conversation of that changing, but past the brand itself, because we're talking about this like there's some special things here, and the special thing here is the grower. Do you think that the future of where it's not something that is as much, we find this more in craft beer probably, but the grower's the person that starts to get the publicity and becomes famous for what they're doing? Like, Dana becomes a well-known figure because of the fact, on like a regular commercial side, instead of really knowing Natural Earth, Dana, and that guy grows some incredible weed. And I just like, is that maybe the step or the direction that this market goes, so that we make craft growers famous for the quality of work that they do, just like we do with a lot of other individual things, whether it be sports, artists, and multiple different medias, right? Like, we go towards them, not the company. You don't think about those things, and on the bigger scale, you generally go to the person that's holding the paintbrush. And do you think that once the marketing gets to open up here a little bit more, and we get to do a little bit more exposing, like, that might be one of the best ways to do it, because then you start to get some allegiance to somebody's abilities.
I would
love, value gets to increase, right? All that stuff, because then
I would love to see that.
I think it takes away the product part of it, and I think that's the problem with the general public right now, is they don't see it as, or they only see it as this product, and they're not getting to see what this product in the hands of an expert looks like. Gets to become.
I would love to see that, particularly as a grower. And right. Nothing better than a pat on the back. But the reality is, people don't give a shit where their weed comes from, man, and that's obvious in today's market. It's percentage, THC percentage. They don't care. They really,
I'm just
really
thinking
don't
of
care.
like a pushback to that.
Look at Budweiser or Bud Light, for example. You
Yeah.
know, this is
Nobody
a
gives a shit.
company that has literally shot themselves in the foot multiple times. People are still buying their product. People are still drinking their beer. They don't care. They don't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
a lot of people do. A lot of people have stopped, but that doesn't matter. And look what they've done, or at least you could say, argue, look what they've done. And people just don't care. They're going to drink beer to get drunk. People are going to smoke weed to get high. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think on a commercial or on an industry, or better yet, on a community or cultural level, yeah, we can anoint these people, and we should not anoint. We should highlight these people, and we should celebrate their successes. When someone creates an incredible plant, when someone creates an incredible genetic, when someone's got that, that thing that checks all the boxes for many people, you can't get one that doesn't makes everyone happy, but you can get one that's pretty outstanding. That person should be celebrated, and generally speaking are celebrated, and I see that, with the different growers cups and high, no, I don't want to say high times cups, because those aren't really, you got to pay to win those ones. You got to pay to win most of them, to be honest with you, but there are a lot of legitimate growers cups out there that are evaluating good smoke, good product, and are tipping their hat to a good grower. And yeah, more of that should happen, but I just don't think the average person really cares where their weed's coming from. And if you told most people that their product was being hit with radiation before it got to the product, I bet you A, they wouldn't even know, but B, really wouldn't care, because a lot of the response is, well, my vegetables are irradiated. I was like, how many of your vegetables do you smoke, friend? How many of those do you inhale into your lungs, friend? I think it's zero, friend. So I don't think we should lump this into the same as carrots and tomatoes and broccoli. This is not the same. We're not smoking that broccoli. So
I also think that it's just, even outside of the potential health hazards, I think it's just a really easy gateway for you to find out if they give a shit. If you're buying outside of just dollar amount, right? Then that's one thing. But when you're trying to decide what, I guess, the good stuff is, what an easy indicator to find out whether or not somebody is willing to put the care into the product. And then you go, well, if they're willing to do that, then the other steps that are being taken, just like we were talking about earlier with you with strain decisions and stuff, once you get to the product itself, well, you've already put in the steps every part of the way so that you can feel confident about what's going on. And that's like, oh, they're a non-irradiated product. Well, that means we know the level of care that's involved to be able to accomplish that, especially on a commercial scale. So now I can have way more confidence. That should be such a confidence booster in purchasing.
It's gonna change. It will change. Time will change. I do believe. Like
the
if
more
I was
education that comes.
I'd be curious if I was to question a bud tender and say, how many people come in here and say, I'm looking for Cypress Craft. I'm looking for Natural Earth. I'm looking for Grump. I'm looking for whatever. I think it's almost nil. I think it would be, you'd be very select. I guess I could ask you in terms of like how many people come in and ask for. I think it would be the normal, the regulars might come in and ask those kind of questions. But generally, when Karen or Chad comes off the side, are they looking for those brands, or are they just looking for the hit factor? Because I'll admit,
you get
that's
it.
what I am.
It's not a main percentage of the business. It's not. I'm not entrusting that word of mouth is. At least I haven't come across anything that has had such strong branding and marketability that it's, whether word of mouth or otherwise, that it's made it like, I have to have this because we are getting killed getting asked about it, right? Like you've got to have that thing, or it's not. There's things do because of, especially in our local market, like with Natural Earth being a good example there. Even vape cart manufacturer Highway 59, very big off the hop, and it became a default. So there was a lot of exposure around a lot of stores. As the market's matured, I find that happens less and less because the options are becoming so varied between store that type of commonality of everybody's carrying this thing. And that was the reason it was being asked about. It wasn't particular because of the quality of the thing itself or any other reason, really. It was just the fact that most shops had it. So if you've been to a couple shops, you know about this product. And so it's just, you're asking for the thing you buy. But that, like I said, is the market's maturing. That's really eroded quite a bit. Like I feel that the person that's coming in and asking for that thing, they're coming in and asking for what this particular joint every time, and even if it's a good one, is because that's been something that's been educated and established with their bud tenders, right? Like with the shop, it's generally not something there, but there's not a lot of outreach outside of like mild social media presences and stuff.
Well, and that clear, we understand, or at least I understand, that Health Canada and the Canadian government makes it very difficult to create, not, I wouldn't say create a brand, but they definitely close some doors, some traditional doors when it comes to branding, and that does stifle. You know, particularly, you know, you mentioned the package. You can only put your logo in a tiny little package, or on a tiny little corner of that package, and that bag is almost indistinguishable from any other bag on the shelf, because you're not seeing the bag on the shelf. Because
right.
when you're looking at the shelf, you're looking at the bud, and that little logo might be just right there, you know. And typically it's the cultivar and the cannabinoids that are listed rather than the name, but they are. But I do think that I'm a strong believer that, and I've mentioned this many times, that the Canadian, or at least our local awareness on brand development, it's almost non-existent, man. Like none of these brands, unless it's been you that's told me about one of these brands, I have never ever heard of any of these brands anywhere. Because
there's few examples where they're in, like you'll see
Highway
spinach,
59.
sours gummy.
Highway 59, I think, would be the only exception, because I think I heard of them based on good product that I got in Saskatchewan.
Okay, yeah, and that's, see, that again, like a word of mouth thing that is going to happen regardless. But I'll see on Twitter or on X now, as you know, the new reality, yeah, X now. The spinach, that company, their sours gummies, I see their ads on Twitter, paid ads, right? And then we have one of the theaters here, VIP theater, where they have waitresses, and they have alcohol, it's licensed. So that one is an 18 plus, and with that, they have, before movies, they have advertisements for cannabis products as like a commercial, where you'd have the car commercials and stuff. And so it's, I just find it weird. Like I clearly need to spend some more time looking into it, because how is it possible that, you know, I'm not even allowed to have a sandwich board outside of my shop with advertising cannabis, for instance. But you can do that on Twitter. And like, I get that at the movie theater, because that one's kind of age gated. But what? You know, like
it's difficult. I get it. Like,
yeah.
And 100%. But it's like, we can't be stopped by that, you know. And like a lot of the conversations I was having with some of these craft shop or owners, if you will, you know, they put a lot of their bags on in Instagram, and then they get deleted, because you're constantly competing against other local dispensaries who are also putting all their eggs into an Instagram page, and they're just reporting each other. Like, it's just a whole bunch of, I'll report you, and I'm going to report you, and the next thing, your Instagram shut down, their Instagram shut down, you're both starting at zero again. But correct me if I'm wrong, you know, dispensaries can host events, maybe not at the dispensary, but you could definitely sponsor, say, let's say like a Pigeons leafy greens bake sale, or car wash, or movie night, or I'm just thinking, like, right off the top of my head, like, I'm sure you could have a thing that was event, or you could sponsor an event, could they not? So let's say there's a marathon, or let's say there's something in town. Put your name on it. Put your name on it, so that everybody is seeing your name. And you know, I don't want to use myself as an example, but I've created a brand, the Pigeons 420 brand, with while still navigating many of the same, you know, I don't create commercials for myself and put them on TV, and I can't put a billboard up that says Pigeons 420 on it, or, you know, there's a lot of traditional ways that I can't, or have not tried to follow either, but have still managed to amass a brand and a following, and that can be done.
But that could be done. There's the brand thing, and there's the horse before the carriage mentality of taking care of the base so that the rest of it comes there. A strong brand is what's held on to your audience. It's what's allowed you to have continual growth. It's all these other things. Those parts have taken care of themselves because you've had that strong base.
It's a reliable product. That's what I think I provide. A reliable product where it's like, yeah, sometimes I might vary off from where, say, you or anyone might be listening, might think. Maybe I go a little right when bud washing. Maybe I go a little left in my harvest techniques or whatever. But it's like at the end of the day, you're going to get the same, relatively same consistent product with a fresh twist, and.
Yeah.
And I believe that for these brands, these local brands, and I know you're competing against a behemoth, right? When you talk about these larger brands that are taking over on the international stage, they're drowning. Okay, they're drowning. Money is not getting them
huge,
anywhere.
But they're not making any money.
Yeah, they're huge, but they're not going. They're not providing that consistent product. So as a craft, focus. Stay honed to what you believe in, that product, its healing properties, its ability to change and help people. Keep doing what you're doing, but then also be just very aware that your brand can't compete against the same person doing the same thing as you, because you're both in that crack. You have to create a brand that's going to be recognizable on a domestic/international stage. And I know it takes more than just Instagram, but persistence and consistency over time equals results. And I think that's how you create great product and follow it with a good brand. Hell of a conversation, man. That was pretty good. But so what makes good weed? I think we kind of answered it in a way, but it's going to be different for everyone, no matter who you are or what part of the world you're in. But the question is, what do you look for when it comes to good weed? Is it all about the product? Is it all about the hit? Is it all about the flavor, the taste, how it's grown, where it's grown, who grew it? These are very important questions that I think should be asked when you're trying to find the greatest product. But
setting priorities.
That's it. Chris, hell of a conversation, man. Where can they find us if they wanted to check us out on social media?
Highly Motivated Productions will be the website, and Highly Motivated Productions on most social medias. You can check us out on Instagram. When TikTok doesn't take us down, there's stuff there. Tweeting out new episodes. We've got some older episodes kicking on your page, and of course here on Highly Motivated.
Yes. Hell yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week. We got lots in store.
Oh, so much. See you guys soon.
Peace.